Hello, I'm Lise-Lotte. Welcome to my garden. Lily is right next to me here. Unfortunately, with the way the camera is, I can't get her into the picture. But anyway, and the reason that we're here is to talk about two things. One is a story about how I met a really special group of women. And the second is to share an idea with you that I think that might be helpful, and I hope it is helpful. And the third thing is to share some flowers from the garden. So to start with, it was July when I lost my youngest daughter, Ilse, to a brain aneurysm when she was 21. It was July 2020. And the whole world was really like, if we were meeting at all, we were meeting outside. And a very dear friend of mine had very gently said, would you like to come and meet my knitting group? And we would knit outside of this little knitting shop in this little village with a bunch of other shops where I know the village really well. It's really close to here. And so I went along and met these new people in this old, to me, village. And what I didn't know at that time was that they would, over the next 5.5 years, become the kind of friends who can really kind of handle me in the way that once you've lost somebody, you don't stop loving them, especially if I don't know, especially, but I've lost other people, my parents and so on, but I think especially your child. You never stop loving. Like, that love still comes forth always, always. It's one of the truths of life, actually, which is lovely, and it's why so many world religions talk about it, because it's really powerful. But in the loving of Ilse, and learning to live without her, I kind of, when I meet people now, I walk into that situation with something that's invisible, something that's sort of bittersweet, which is that I continue to be inspired by Ilse. She continues to make me laugh when I see videos or have memories of things that we've done together. And I really have always been in awe of who she was as a person, insofar as things didn't always come easily, and yet that didn't stop her. And so as a solo business owner, that is actually a very helpful thing to remember, sometimes on a daily basis, of just, things don't always happen the way that you think that they're going to right away, but you just keep going, and she did. And so she was an example for me in that sort of notion of determination that I rely on heavily, or have relied on heavily in the last 5.5 years since this happened. And so to be around me is to know that I am going to talk about Ilse. In any kind of online thing, I don't talk about the rest of the family because they are very private and they don't want me to, and but you need to know that we're really close. So just because I don't talk about the rest of the family doesn't mean they're not there, or they're somehow not as important or anything like that. It's just because I'm sharing this to the world, really, besides to you who's watching. And so that's how that is. But for Ilse, I also, like when some of the moms are talking about something that, their children did or reminded them of when they were little, then I will also talk about something that Ilse said, or, and it doesn't, not everybody can kind of hear that without knowing that, when you've lost somebody, there's nothing broken. You're not broken. There's nothing to be fixed. People don't need to fix it. There is nothing to be fixed. You're not broken, you're learning. And at that time, I was learning how to live a life without Ilse, something that I never thought I would ever have to do. I never spent a moment thinking about it, and I'm glad I never wasted a moment, so neither should you. Don't even think of it if you're not in this position. it's a waste of time. Just get on with living and choosing your places to, put your attention and bring joy to your life. That's what it's about. And anyway, so in this group of women, I have found these people who really can handle that, can handle that without trying to change anything or feel sad or make it better or anything. There's nothing to be done. It was a tragedy, and that's how tragedies are. Like, it just is. And so that was sort of the first part, which is that was how I met this wonderful group of women. Ilse had met 3 of the people before, but not the other 2. So she would recognize my laugh when I'm laughing with these other women and having a good time, because that's what we did together, Ilse and I. Lots of laughter in our house. So that is exactly the same, actually, and I am completely myself. And I think that that's a measure of when you find people who you are able to be creative with, and maybe it's like knitting that brings you together, but maybe there are other kinds of things that bring you together. But through knitting anyway, this is something that has been a real gift in my life, and I really appreciate these women. And one of the women had an idea about doing a podcast. And I didn't really know anything about knitting podcasts in this way. And I still thought that podcasts were like audio only, but they're not actually. They're on YouTube. And of course they need to be visual, because people are showing the things that they've made. And it's actually a really cool medium, because a lot of people are sharing stories like I do here every week. But they share stories very specifically about like a finished item or, that kind of stuff. So we have our own rhythm to this new podcast that we've started. And we have things that we'll do every time. And so it's going to be really exciting. In fact, we've had a lot of fun with it so far. And huge feedback. Like at this point, I think we're only a few days in, and we've had over 1,000 people see the first video. So it's really cool. It's really fun. And so I'll link that here if you're interested. And in doing this podcast, I started to think about, well, gosh, like everybody sort of has their thing that they're making, and then they know exactly the pattern, and they know the wool, and they know that they might know about the designer, and there might be a story about that. And I haven't collected all of that. Like, my stuff is like, it's still in like cloth bags that I was, when I finished the project, it got left there, and things are kind of higgledy-piggledy. And I started to I thought, well, I need to take stock of like, what have I made? And what do I want to make next? And so anyway, so I thought, well, I'll start with the kind of book that other people have, that they kind of collected, what their projects are, and they collect it in that. So I started this. This was a book. Isn't that lovely? It's a book that a family member had given me. I was saving it for something, because look at how it lies flat. So of course I was going to write on it or whatever. But I decided to make this my knitting book. And so what I've done is, this was a project that I just finished. This is a picture that I've taken and I've printed off. This is the first Sophie scarf I've ever made. This is a little piece of the cashmere that I can't find the label, but maybe I will come across the label. And then this is a little bit of a story about it, because I needed to write something. And this is this is a picture of me in October outside of a yarn shop in Copenhagen, which I'd been to many times before. But on this particular trip, because I was traveling alone between Paris and Copenhagen on the train, I thought, well, I better travel really light. And so I won't bring any knitting, was like, okay, well, that lasted only a few days. And then there I was at that shop getting the smallest project that I could think of. And I'd never knit a Sophie scarf before. It's a very narrow, as you can see here, it's a very narrow scarf. My cousin had made one for me, which I wear all the time. And I kind of thought it was so mainstream, like everybody was doing them. But I can, now that I have made this, and Kathy, one of my knitting friends on this podcast, has shown in the podcast, and it'll come out soon, about a sort of a trick for that. And so I used that trick, that tool, to make this one. So that was really great. And then it got me starting to think, you know, I have these, when I think about how knitting is for me, it is that I often am traveling somewhere and I buy the wool there, and I get the pattern there. I might start it on the trip, or I might not until I get home. Kind of depends. But I have done this so many times that I also have chosen large projects, like, for example, this sweater. Not that it's a huge sweater, but just that it, you know, took a lot of knitting and there's a lot of pattern work and so on. And so it took me a while to do it. And so part of this sweater isn't just the sweater. Like, I could go to, you know, a secondhand shop and buy a hand knit sweater, like that somebody else has made, if I wanted a handmade sweater. But for me, this is the memory of when I bought this sweater, who I bought the wool with, where I got it, and then over the months that it took me, because I was doing all kinds of other things, so it wasn't like a straight project where I just did the knitting. I had months of where I took my knitting. So I have a couple pictures here, and this one here, and I wrote about a little bit there, which was that I was sitting next to the ocean. I was away, I was here on Vancouver Island, and I was sitting next to the ocean, and kind of the ocean was here, and I was knitting here, and so I was focused on my knitting, and I heard this kind of, it's like, oh, and it didn't sound, it sounded known, like I'd heard it before, so it wasn't alarming in any way, like it wasn't like a sound that shouldn't have been there. It was sort of vaguely familiar. And then I thought, wait a minute, what is that? It happened again. And it was this, and yes, it was an orca whale going past where I was. And sure enough, I did get some pictures. But there I was, and it was kind of that notion of, like, sometimes when you're so involved in something, you really miss what is quite miraculous in my mind. I think these are amazing mammals, amazing animals, and we need to take care of them and take care of the ocean. But anyway, and it's right there. Like, and so many times I will sit by the ocean somewhere, whether it's here in the Salish Sea or wherever I am, and I'll look out, especially for some reason, especially on days when it's windy and there's sort of choppy water, and I'm like, I know I'm going to see a whale. I know I'm going to see a whale. I don't see whales. Lots of people are like, oh, I walked by here yesterday. Did you see the whales? No. No, I didn't. So I'm sitting here and I'm focusing on something else, and not really kind of, but that's fair. I mean, you're sitting by the ocean to knit too. That's totally good. But it was just that thing of, like, being aware of what's around you and not missing out, and I don't know. Anyway, so there are lots of, you know, pictures. This is this hat that I had made, and I had bought this wool in Aarhus in Denmark and brought it home, and then I sat with it later here on the west coast, and while the family was surfing, and knit with it and so on. So I'm going to, rather than make it sort of very much a I don't know, like a scientific journal, I'm actually not going to do that. I'm actually going to because also I'm going back, right? So I'm going to go back and figure out like what was the pattern and all that stuff. This is easy because I just finished it. This is easy because I just finished it. But I bought these socks. I bought this material, or the wool for these socks, before I could knit socks, but knowing that I wanted to one day, and also in Aarhus at a different knitting store. And yeah, so of course that's Lily and I. But anyway, and so I feel like this, actually doing it this way, could just be more sort of scrapbook-y. And it's nice to have a bit of the feeling of and also the color. Like this is an okay replication of the color, but because that works, but not all of them will. Like this looks sort of pinky to me, but then I took it because, you know, it was the light of the late summer, and yeah, so if I want something that is true to the color, if I'm thinking about something like that, well then I'll have this. And some of the things I've given away and so on, so I'm not going to have all of the things. But as I was going back and looking at the pictures, I realized, yeah, I didn't really do it in that way. I did it in the way of these projects have been part of my story. Like the notion that I'm knitting is not about a finished product, really. It's about having the chance to give myself that time to do something that I love. I've been knitting all my life, and sometimes doing something that's driving me crazy and I'm so frustrated by it, and I have to get through that and get out of my own head and just push on through, or look it up on YouTube and see again how it was done and then rip it out and try again. Like sometimes it's that, but sometimes life is that, right? And so for me, this book is going to, I'm right now, maybe it should have a different name, but I'm just calling it Lise-Lotte's Knitting Memory Book, because it's like, what are the memories? And actually, as I was going through looking for some of the photographs, I had some delightful memories that I completely had forgotten about. And if I just looked at the sweater, well, some of the things I'd actually forgotten I'd even made, honestly. And some of them I thought, oh gosh, like, did I make that then? I didn't remember it was that long ago. Like, sort of plays with time a little bit in your own mind, in your own memory. And anyway, so if I offer that as hopefully something that you might want to take on, whether it's something that you do knitting or whatever it is. But as I was kind of taking stock, I was thinking about, what does that tell me? Like, why would I do this? What is important about that for my future creativity? Because I tend to live in the present moment as much as I can. And for lots of different reasons. Did you hear that hummingbird? Anyway, lots of different reasons, but I try and do that as much as I can, living in the present moment. But I think what an exercise like this can do, or it has done that for me this morning as I prepared for this conversation, is that it can tell me, like I'm trying a new pattern. I've never made it before. My friend made it. I saw it in a book that she bought. I just loved it. I fell in love with it. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. And I don't know if I can do it. Like, I feel like, gosh, I don't know. It looks hard because I don't have a sense of what it's supposed to be in my mind. I don't have a mental picture of what this is gonna, like, how this all fits together. So I don't know if I can do it. And when I go back and look at something like this, I think, gosh, there were lots of things you didn't think you could do. There were lots of things that this sweater included. My friend had said to me, well, I know somebody else who did this pattern and they found it really hard. So I hope you don't find it really hard. Like it's kind of impossible. I'm like, oh, gee. But I didn't. I mean, I did have some, but I enjoyed it. And the sleeves, I had some trouble with the sleeves. It wasn't a straightforward kind of thing, but nothing is. And the reminder is, yeah, but you didn't let that get in your way. You kept going. And I guess that is really the measure of something like this, is you enjoyed these moments. Yes, you had some frustration. All of it is wrapped in there, but you kept going. So if you did that hard thing, why can't you do the next hard thing? Of course you can. And you figured out how to do it. And so you're going to figure out how to do the next thing. And I think that that is a lovely lesson for us in lots of ways in life. Whether it's you have your own business or you're working on a project that is really hard because you've never done it before. Well, it's hard because you've never done it before. You don't know what it's supposed to feel like or look like, or what's the model. It's not in your mind. It's not in your mind's eye. You can't remember about it. You can't see it. Of course it's hard. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. Hard and being able to do something are totally different things. So especially in creativity. So the last thing I want to show you is this. Some of you may remember this jug that I got last year. I just love this jug. I wanted my flower studio to feel like this jug, and so it was a bit of a mess, and I cleaned it all up, and then afterwards last year it felt like this jug. But here are some of the things that are blooming in the garden, and I put this together 2 days ago. So these are starting to drop. The cherry blossoms, the blossom part is starting to go. But I'm really enjoying the colors and some little surprises of things that are, this came from a friend of mine. I can't remember the name of the flower, but she will remember it as soon as she sees this, because she's really good with that stuff. And yeah, and I always think of this flower as the one that was on my book. Of course it has a name, but that's not the name, but I just always think of that. So when they come out, and then there's some that have kind of a variegated, like you don't expect this to have any kind of a variegated color to it in that blue. Isn't that beautiful? I always think of them as just being one color, and most of them usually are, but how lovely that this is like that. So I will leave you with that. I hope that you have some way of reminding yourself that you can do this hard thing that you're about to do because you've done other hard things. And maybe you can meet a group who, or maybe you have a group in your life already who you can be completely yourself with, and who you can go on a creative adventure with. And if you do, I would love to know what that is. Maybe it's travel, maybe it's trying a project together, maybe it's making something collectively, I don't know. But I would love to know. So I thank you for being here, and I wish you peace on your path.